Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. So today I want to continue an idea that I was working on Thursday's episode, which I'll link in the description below in case you're watching this much later. But there we were talking about whether or not you could vote yourself out of democracy and who you would be willing or unwilling to ally with to get that done. So this goes back to the some episodes I did about the Palestinian protests, and a lot of comments I got from you guys were that, well, these people are scumbags, and they are a lot of communists and foreigners, and they don't have good hygiene, and their message is all wrong. That they're doing free Palestine, that they're doing Palestinian flags. If you just had all American flags and you just said you're anti-genocide, period, and the people were like, "Hey, what genocide?" They were doing a Palestinian protest. They're scheduling it for my area, and on Facebook, my wife seen that, and she looked on there, and it's just everybody saying, "Oh, go Israel, go Israel," and then she posted like, "Well, do you guys love genocide?" And some old white guy responded to her and said, like, "What genocide?" And she's like, "Is he trolling me? Why isn't the protest an anti-genocide protest?" And then they could be like, "Oh, what genocide? Are you protesting the genocide going on right now in the Sudan by the UAE?" No, actually, I'm talking about Gaza and the West Bank and Israel. It would have much better optics. But basically, from what I gather based on your comments, that if you are either against Israel or you're against genocide, so for whatever reason you're not willing to work with these particular Free Palestine groups in order to either protest the genocide or in order to weaken Israel's power in the United States by drawing attention to the genocide. And I think about it like this. Let's just say you are pro-life and that you are pro-guns. Just pretend that you're like that. I imagine that's a pretty good guess. But say you want to work on a pro-life initiative in your state. Are you willing to work with some gun control nuts who just desperately want to take every one of your guns? They're so stupid that they think the AR-15 stands for Assault Rifle 15. But they're willing to work with you on pro-life. Are you willing to work with them? And conversely, or inversely, I should say, are you willing to work with just some psychopath who just loves killing babies, who makes TikTok? She's like 18. She makes TikTok videos of her jumping on top of her door, stomach first, on the top of her door to, simulate murdering an infant. Are you willing to work with her because she's also a gun nut and she loves the guns and she wants to stop gun control measures? Are you willing to work with her on and I think that it's a valid point that I'm making, and that in both cases I would be willing to work with the person that I disagree with on the other thing if we're just working on this thing. And if you say no to that, then what about a hypothetical scenario where if you don't work with them, your initiative fails? Would you then be willing to work with them? So I do understand that there are some situations where I would say no to this, like if we're working on defeating a gun control measure, we'll say, and then we're going to have this big protest, and then the trans alliance of a trans group that also has the MAP group, the minor attracted persons group, says, "Hey, we really love guns too, and we don't have any mental illnesses. It's going to be a bad look. It's going to be optically, it's going to be terrible to say, yeah, ally with us and we'll just all go march together." And it might actually undermine your. So I do recognize that. I'm not saying that this is this idea goes 100% across the board. There are exceptions to it. So here's the overall idea of this episode, and I want to hear your feedback to see if I'm right or wrong. But my overall assessment is that people aren't willing to work with enough groups of people to come to a common goal on a single issue than they should be. Am I wrong about that? If so, put it in the description. And my opinion is that we should be more willing to work with groups that disagree with us on a variety of topics if it's on a single issue to get a single thing done that our wheels converge on. Now, if we take this back to Thursday's episode, when we talk about, like I was just talking about the hypothetical of doing a vote of no confidence in your government, right? I know that that's kind of a foreign concept to the United States because I don't think that thing's ever been done or tried. But in other countries, it has worked successfully. We've had one constitution in this country. Some countries have had 7 different constitutions. On I do recognize that when we're talking about what groups we would ally with, okay? Would we ally with a communist group to successfully get a vote of no confidence against the United States government? A system which we both are disgusted by, but we both have very different courses of action if we were to come to power. Well, the answer to that just depends. If they're the largest bloc in the country with 35% of people going that way and your group has 20% of people going your way, then the answer is no. Because I'd rather have imperialist United States as is than to take a communist United States if they're the largest single group and then they would come to power afterwards. Now, if that was inverted and we had 35% and we had the largest group and then they had 20% and they didn't have a coalition to work with, but they just wanted to dissolve the system no matter what, then we would be, in my opinion, we would be willing to work with them to a degree and where it's optically suitable, in my opinion. You could also take this idea that I'm pitching right now, and I pitched this before when it comes to Black nationalism. We did an episode on the villain series to see whether or not he was a villain on Malcolm X. He was a Black nationalist in his last 18 months of his life. He ended up becoming a hero. He did his redemption arc, and he started fighting all for Black people. And you would say, why would you want to ally with someone like that? You could, if I don't like just labels, but if you were putting me in a label, you could say white ethno-nationalist, you could say. But a white ethno-nationalist and a Black ethno-nationalist have a lot in common, right? I would rather work with a Black ethno-nationalist to promote Black ethno-nationalism if that helps in any way support, increase the strength of white ethno-nationalism. And vice versa is fine, because it's better to diminish the power of liberal, just totally scumbag Black leaders nowadays who are just race baiters and just doing terrible for the Black community. And then also if it could diminish the power of white people who are into the diversity and multiculturalism and all that. So anyways, that's what I've got for you. I'm interested in knowing, honestly, in the comments, whether or not you think that this is a problem, that people won't work with other groups as much as they should be, or if I'm off base about that, and whether or not we should, and which examples did I say that you would never work with. I'm interested in hearing, or what examples have I not said that we could work with as an idea for the future? Obviously, people's minds aren't in the right place to do a vote of no confidence and then get the right people in power that would do the right thing for our people. That's just clearly obvious. And then that just means we necessarily need to redouble our efforts to change the hearts and minds of people, our people, and even other people if they're working towards the same ends that we are. In my opinion, that's what I got. Maybe it's controversial, maybe it's not. I would like to hear from you. And on Wednesday, we're going to do the episode on whether or not the German AfD party are Nazis or not. And I think that's going to be very interesting. Hope to see you there.